Well, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Wade Crowfoot, and I serve as our California Natural Resources Secretary. We are here at the local water agency in Sacramento amidst cloudless blue sky and sunny warm weather. In fact, record-breaking weather. Not everyone knows that January and February and now March have been the driest period to begin a year in the state's 170-year history. It has been a wet winter of weather whiplash, a big atmospheric river that doused the Sacramento region in October, followed by a very dry November, followed by a blockbuster December of winter and snow, and now followed by the driest January, February, and now March period in California history. And what this means as we near the end of our winter season, typically our wet season, is we are very likely navigating a worsening drought, the third year of drought. Now, California has cycles of drought, and that's part of our natural environment. However, our drought conditions are becoming more threatening with climate change. Warming winter temperatures is reducing that snowpack that accumulates in our Sierra Nevada mountain range that gets used throughout the year. And warming spring and summer temperatures mean that more of that snow absorbs into very dry soils or evaporates into the air. And that leaves us with a challenge in the Sacramento region and across California. We are now, as I said, entering into our third year of drought. Just a couple of years after the worst drought in modern history that ended in 2016. Remarkable progress and actions have been taken here in Sacramento and the region, but across California since that last drought in 2016. Californians have become more efficient with the water that they use. Water agencies, like the one here in the Sacramento region, has engaged in all sorts of actions to create more resilience to drought, including expanding water banking, where we're capturing groundwater during the wet winter for use during the drier months. And that's great. And so I'm here to thank Californians, thank Sacramentans for the actions that they've taken. But I'm also here on behalf of Governor Newsom to ask all of us to do more. It was July of last year when Governor Newsom asked Californians to voluntarily reduce their water usage by 15%, recognizing that water efficiency, water conservation plays an important role getting us through these challenging drought conditions. And in fact, during the last drought, Californians reduced their water usage almost 25% across the state during that drought. So it's once again time for Sacramentans, residents of this region, Californians to step up and help us navigate through this drought. So we're here today with Mayor Steinberg and my colleagues in state government to talk about what we're doing and what we're working to do to help California navigate through the drought, and sharing with you what you can do to help your community and your state navigate through the drought. So without further ado, I want to introduce a key partner in so many things with Governor Newsom, and certainly including environmental preservation and building our climate resilience, and that is Mayor Darrell Steinberg.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Crowfoot, my friend Wade. I'm really thrilled to be joined by you and Secretary Josh Friday as well, who heads California Volunteers, as well as a number of leaders in our city. I'm joined by Councilmember Jeff Harris here, who is the city's leader, elected leader on water issues, the chair of our water committee. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. And Bill Busaith, who is our Director of Utilities. We're also joined by Jim Pfeiffer, the Regional Water Authority, and many other city leaders here today. I want to thank Governor Newsom, Secretary Crowfoot, for providing exemplary leadership when it comes to climate and water. Not only unprecedented levels of resources to help California and Sacramento deal with the drought, but consistent leadership on the policy level as well. To recognize that there is not just one solution or one answer to the climate crisis, and the resulting water crisis. Look, let's put this into some context for just a moment. Hello. It's been 60 days since Sacramento last received measurable amounts of rain. These dry months are on the heels, yes, of an historically wet October, and we're thankful for that, but we are living through the real life water impacts of climate change. We are still in what's called a stage 2 water alert in our city. We continue to ask our residents to cut back up to 15% of their water usage. And it's beginning to have some results. In November of this year, Sacramento saved more water than we had in a decade with a 22% reduction. We are switching back. We have switched back to our summer watering schedule. It does allow watering twice a week. But we are here today to say that, unfortunately, our work has just begun when it comes to conservation. There are opportunities for residents because of the state investment in water conservation and because of the city's contributions to water conservation to actually take charge of your own contribution. We'll provide up to $1,500 to replace your lawn. Since 2014, I'm really proud of this. The city has helped residents convert more than 1 million square feet of grass to river-friendly, drought-tolerant landscape. And you see it exemplified behind us here today. Conservation is vital, but we're also here to say that conservation is not enough. You've heard of the concept of banking. We all know what banking is. You put money in a bank to save it for another day. Well, there's also an opportunity here in California and in Sacramento to bank our water. And I know that our regional water authority, working again with Chairman Esquivel and working with Governor Newsom and state leadership, are talking about and trying to work towards using some of the existing resources and whatever new resources there might be to bank more of our water here in the city of Sacramento. We have done very well with groundwater. Over the last 20 years of historic drought, our groundwater levels here in the Sacramento region have increased. So let's continue to make sure that we save for a non-rainy day. I just made that up, by the way. For a non-rainy day, and not only conserve, but bank our water. It's my pleasure to introduce the Chief Service Officer, is his official title, the head of California Volunteers, a great guy, my good friend, Josh Friday. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Mayor Steinberg. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you for being an ongoing leader in this space and partner to the state of California. My name is Josh Friday, and I oversee California Volunteers in the Office of the Governor. California Volunteers is tasked with engaging Californians in civic action and service and volunteerism to tackle some of our biggest challenges. And it's an honor to be here today with not only local leaders, but state leaders like Secretary Crowfoot and the chair of the Water Board to send a real clear message to Californians. And the message is, yes, we need to conserve water. But more importantly, you, every single Californian, can be a critical part of this solution. We are in a drought. We know that. We just heard the numbers. It's been 60 days since we've had measurable rain here in Sacramento. But the truth is that we are not powerless in this issue. That what you do, every single one of you, around your home, with your appliances, how you use your water, what you plant, it all makes a difference. It makes a real difference. So we want to make sure that we're providing easy tips to everyone in our communities, easy things that you can do. Like change your lawn. Last Father's Day, I went out with my young boys, put them to work. We changed our lawn into a drought-resistant garden. Unfortunately, I've not received my $1,500 yet from the mayor, so I'm going to collect at some point. These are the simple things that everyone can do. You can also plant a drought resistance and native vegetation. You can use mulch. Later, we're going to get our hands dirty, and we're going to show you how you can do it in your garden. You can turn off water when brushing or shaving, which saves 10 gallons by just doing that. If you want to save 24 gallons of water, you can take a 5-minute shower, which in the Navy, we called it a good old-fashioned Navy shower, or use a half a bath. These are the simple things every Californian can do to save water. You can wash full loads of laundry and dishes to save 60 gallons. And you can water trees directly with a hose or with a bucket. So the reason that we're here today is to say that every Californian can be part of the solution for something as critical as saving water. Last year, Governor Newsom and California volunteers launched the first statewide Climate Action Corps to empower every Californian to take action. We've deployed hundreds of organizers throughout the state. We've created a hub, a volunteer hub, so you can find out how to volunteer with a climate organization in your community. And we did this because we need to send a very clear message that we need every Californian, that we can get through this drought, we can get through this crisis together, but it's going to take all of us stepping up, and California is helping, making it easier to take action. Y ahora algo en español. Si tienes una hora para ayudar a tus vecinos o conservar agua, o si puedes hacer un año completo de servicio para ayudar a tu comunidad, hay formas de participar. Necesitamos la ayuda de todos. California te necesita. So for even more tips, please, to conserve water, go to saveourwater.com. And now it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce you all to the State Water Board Chair, Joaquin Esquivel. Joaquin.
Really appreciate it, Josh. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate being able to join the leadership here and thank particularly Mayor Steinberg and the Secretary and the Governor for what has been already a difficult year. I think to the many communities that have had to respond to drought this last summer, which was incredibly intense in the Russian River and places throughout the state. And I know that it can be anxiety-inducing, the challenges that the climate crisis are posing to us, this incredibly deep and dry drought that we haven't seen conditions like in at least 1,200 years. And so I think what our message here is we can turn that climate anxiety into action, and it can be in a way that really reinvests in our communities, reconnects us to the resource that we all know is so critical to us, and especially in these times of scarcity, and again, the challenge that this long-term drought is posing to us all. These individual actions can actually be very empowering, and they can really connect you, again, to the ways in which all collectively we're able to manage through what are difficult circumstances. But it's not just the individual actions that we're all bringing to this crisis, it's also the collective action at the watershed level and at the state level that importantly is going to get us through this work. And there we have a generational opportunity to reinvest in our water systems with the $5.2 billion that Governor Newsom led and investments in our water systems and drought now, but also for resiliency into the years ahead. Because it's like projects like the water bank, like water recycling throughout the state that is going to continue to grow that portfolio, grow the bank account that we know we need to have in the face of the challenges that we have in our communities. And so we're preparing for this summer, imagining the worst case scenarios and importantly, empowering local communities to manage through the drought through resources, through rebates that again, emphasize the ability for all of us to contribute to this moment, but also emphasize the way in which our systems writ large are needing this investment and refreshment. So thank you all for the time and look forward to questions and discussion.
I want to recognize Assemblymember Kevin McCarty as well, who's not here, but his team is here, and thank him for his leadership as well. And I want to bring up to the podium again my colleague on the City Council who chairs our Water Committee and has done a great job on all of that and more, Councilmember Jeff Harris.
Thank you, everybody. You know, conserving water is a very important piece of moving through these periods of drought, which we are probably going to experience on a more frequent basis in light of climate change. Conserving water isn't hard, but to be able to conserve water, you really have to know how much water you use. And a very important tool to understand that use is a water meter. The city of Sacramento voted to accelerate our water meter project, and we've completed it now so that every house has a meter. And the Department of Utilities is helping people to understand their water usage so that they can cut back. In our city, our gallons per capita per day use has gone down dramatically since the last big drought of 2015, and we have more or less trained our constituents to be more water thrifty. As has been said, we offer rebates to swap turf for drought-resistant plants. We do another thing, which is help subsidize water controllers. So it's a web-connected device instead of your sprinkler timer. These things will really help you understand your water usage and how to irrigate successfully with the least amount of water. So we take our conservation very seriously in the city of Sacramento, and we've made great strides. We will continue to be a leader in terms of cutting down our daily use in terms of gallons of water. It's an education campaign. We've got a lot of literature out there. And I know that combined with increasing our inventory through the groundwater bank and through, proper operations of our reservoirs, as well as new inventory like the Sites Reservoir, we will work together as Californians to solve this problem, to make sure that we have abundant water for all our citizens. Thank you very much.
We would be glad to answer any questions that members of the media or public have.
Hi, Kathleen Renane with AP. So you're all up here today asking people to do what Governor Newsom has been asking people to do since last July, and reminders are great, but the fact that you're out here would seem to suggest that simply asking people to do it is not having the effect that you want. So what, I know the State Water Resources Control Board has adopted some mandatory water use rules that can come with fines, but what, if anything, are we doing beyond asking? And is there a sense that we sort of maybe to a place where we need to be more punitive if people do not conserve voluntarily?
So since last summer, we've made progress on expanding water conservation or reducing water use across the state. And collectively, I believe the state residents have reduced water usage by about 7% over that period. And that's really admirable. And that's something that that residents deserve credit for, especially given everything that we all have had to contend with from the pandemic on down. It's important for us to be out here today to remind Californians and residents of this region after, as I said, a winter of weather whiplash, that now as the winter ends and our traditional wet season ends, that we are very clearly headed into a third year of drought. So this is really a reminder that we're asking all Californians to step up, not only on reducing their temporary water usage, but to take actions like what we see behind us, transitioning landscapes to drought-tolerant plants, to change out appliances, etc. One thing we learned from the last drought is just how differently the drought impacts different parts of our state. So our lawmakers actually strengthened requirements on local water agencies to create more comprehensive water shortage contingency plans. So each of our water agencies has localized plans based on the different types of supplies they utilize and the different conditions in their region. So with Chair Escobar, we've been very clear working with local water agencies that they need to operationalize those water shortage contingency plans. You heard Mayor Steinberg talk about this region being in stage 2. So right now we're working with our local water agencies and really being very clear about our expectation that they're stepping up and they're taking action through those water shortage contingency plans, which may involve mandatory restrictions on a local or regional basis. And then I'll just say, as the drought conditions worsen and as the drought persists, we have to keep all options on the table moving forward.
Yeah, and what could you spell out maybe in layman's terms sort of what the consequences are if people fail to adequately conserve?
Yeah, and I'll share an initial thought and I'll ask Joaquin to come. Well, so broadly speaking, obviously during the drought, we're working to balance water between communities, our natural environment that our fish and wildlife depend on, and of course our agricultural community. So saving water is not only protecting water supplies for the community, but it also means caring for the environment and ensuring water for those other uses. So collectively, during the last drought, water conservation was really important, stretching water supplies for a longer period of time. One of the challenges of a drought is we don't know when it will end. And so the wiser we are with the use of water now means the more sustainable we are if the drought persists. And as we've talked about, right now our call is for voluntary conservation, folks to step up and take actions in their own lives. We're also, and I'll turn it over to Joaquin in a moment, clear that water waste is not appropriate. Simply put, water is a precious resource, particularly in the American West. And we have to move away from clearly wasteful water practices. For example, cleaning a driveway instead of sweeping it by wasting water and spraying it off. So clearly we're working to make conservation a way of life, squeeze out that water waste, and then ask residents to do what they can to reduce reduce water usage on a temporary basis. Joaquin, do you want to elaborate?
Thanks, Wade, and I appreciate the question. I think first, when you look at the 7.5, I think in December at this point, savings that we've seen cumulatively, that's statewide, and there's a lot of variability in what different communities actually achieved on conservation. And so I think importantly to flag, you look at the Russian River watershed, and there were communities that were meeting 40, 60% conservation because the circumstances there were incredibly dire. The board was curtailing here for the first time actively water rights for the first time in history. We were relaxing water quality standards. And an important component is really driving down that usage so as to be able to make it through the dry period, make it through multiple years now with dry conditions. And so I think, that 7.5% isn't nothing, but it is also not going to be enough depending on the community. And I think there we have to remember that you look at Southern California or you look here in Sacramento, the portfolios the communities depend on are very different. And so we're trying not to muddle the message. Here we're saying water waste it needs to be eliminated. We have to be water wise because the climate is just really, that's where we are. And we have to actually reflect that in the values and the way we use water, both in a household and a personal level, looking and seeing how we can conserve, but also at that system-wide level. As the secretary mentioned, we have in place now work actually that's a lot more detailed around water use efficiency. We're doing complicated and really 21st century work with a lot of the water agencies where we're really scanning and looking at what is the water use, how much of it is grass or turf, how much of it is tree canopy, how do we make sure that we're setting water budgets that again reflect the reality of the dire circumstances we face, not just here in the emergency moment with conservation, but the long term as well. So hopefully that helps a bit. But the consequence truly, and again, let's just look at the Russian River watershed, is not being able to meet the needs for households and communities and homes going dry. And that's where the state has worked very hard throughout the summer to ensure that communities didn't go dry. Domestic wells, state smalls, working directly with counties and spending millions of dollars to make sure that we're supporting communities there. So the conservation component is really important, and it the data kind of parses out different ways.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a KCRA question for Joaquin. You mentioned on the state level, reinvesting in water systems, doing more water recycling. Are there any, in addition to that, any current maybe larger scale projects that you guys are working on to help solve or at least put a dent in the drought?
There's a lot of large scale projects that are moving around the state. And importantly, the board doesn't do them. The local leaders are the ones that are really identifying how to best reinvest at the watershed scale, how to do things like the water bank here locally. And we're fortunate at the board to be partners in that since 2014, we've actually been able to invest about $9.75 billion into drinking water systems, wastewater systems, groundwater cleanup, stormwater capture, and water recycling. Those are loans and grants. And here, with the investment that Governor Newsom led, with the 5.2 billion. I think of also Prop 1 dollars from the previous administration. These investments that have been coming to the board are making it out into communities. So I think of San Diego with their Pure Water project there. We recently put $50 million additionally into a critical project for them. There's also Los Angeles with goals to recycle, I think by 2035, nearly all of their recycled water. And what we are fortunate for is not just the leadership of Governor Newsom to ensure that we have dollars for recycling and drinking water and wastewater systems, but also the bipartisan infrastructure law, where at the federal level, we're going to see a five-fold increase in the state revolving fund dollars and the loans and principal forgiveness that we're going to receive on the federal side. So we're incredibly fortunate to have a lot of state and federal resources, but it's the local leaders coming to us with applications, thinking through the real critical investments that need to be made. And they're the state's a partner too. We're providing data to be a basis for this. The Resources Agency and Cal EPA together are really trying to make sure that we're being mindful of this incredible generational opportunity and to make sure that it's materializing into the benefits we all need.
And I would add one concrete example here in the region is the Harvest Water Project, which is happening in the southern part of the county. And that's actually being funded by a water bond that was passed statewide by the voters in 2014. It's the so-called Prop 1 project. And it will recycle water that then gets used for agricultural production and then substitutes the water that had been used for agricultural production for communities. So it's innovative. And in Sacramento and the region deserves credit for really trying to double down on banking groundwater. In other words, during the wet storms of the winter, capturing that water and then putting it underground for use during the dry periods. And as Joaquin said, it's really not a one-size-fits-all solution from state government, but it's really us supporting the local priority projects.
Additional question for either the mayor or the council member. For the water banking you guys were talking about, where is that right now? Where does that stand right now?
Well, Jim Pfeiffer's here from our regional water board. Come on up. We are competing for resources to increase our water bank capacity. That is the endeavor, because we've been so successful with groundwater over the years. We want to be able to enhance that capacity. And I'm going to repeat my tagline because it was pretty good. Save it for a non-rainy day. That's exactly what I did. Yeah, because it was good. All right, here we go.
So as mentioned earlier, this region is creating the Sacramento Regional Water Bank. That work has actually started in partnership with the state of California. The state has actually invested $80 million within this region, along with local ratepayer funds at the tune of $200 million to create 30,000 acre feet of banking capacity. That is water that's available in dry years when we need it for our economy and for our environment. That work is still going on, and we hope to have a federally recognized groundwater bank in the next 2 years. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Well, really appreciate everyone being here. I think we're going to transition to a little bit of mulch spreading for those who are interested. Josh Friday is actually a certified mulch spreader. Josh, yeah, so you're going to lead the effort. Yeah, exactly. Excellent. So it's kind of like a ribbon.
Where?
But we're not going We'd like you.
We did this in San Jose, and it was like.